What's going on, everybody? Doug Doppler coming to you from the newly revamped Gear Garage. Pleasure to have you on board. Super excited, as I always am, about today's show. Holy cow. It's never without some sort of crazy thing happening at the last minute. So I'm going to be toggling microphones because for whatever reason, my shotgun is showing up on input, but it's not passing into Ecamm Live. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of manual toggling, but we've got some awfully cool, fun stuff. So let's just start off. First things first, let's hear what this whole little dealio sounds like. I can't believe I'm going to have to toggle doing the mouse like this, but okay. So first of all right, where to begin? All right, let's see if we can do a little bit of this like that. There we go. All right, so we have the infamous, the one and only Quad Cortex here, and I've spent some time with it. Holy cow. So the long and the short of it is that this thing is about the size of a woman's shoebox, give or take. It is exceptionally powerful. You can pretty much operate it without having to have a manual. And it does some of the most complex stuff really easily. The interesting thing about this particular take, there's so many great videos out there. Rabea, Mitch from Sweetwater, just a ton of great videos. Tom Quayle. So first of all, if you haven't had a chance to see those, which you probably have, watch them because they're all great and they're really kind of ground up stuff. I'm going to be doing a standalone video on this in the next day and a half or so. But really what I wanted to do here was actually use this thing as I would actually use it. And in so doing, kind of break apart strategies for using this. Now, I have a very particular agenda about how I use gear. I very traditionally use the same approach over and over. And I have a tendency to, no matter what box I'm doing, I just kind of do the same stuff over and over. So let's take a step back and for those of you, wait a second. Yeah, we don't need that overlay. You can go bye-bye. There we go. Traditionally, you know, most guitar players have a template off of which they work. And if you're new to this whole modeling thing, Gabe Metzger, you know, you're like, hey, I'm thinking about picking up some sort of modeling thing. All we're doing is basically taking a rig and freeze drying it and going, and well, it hopefully doesn't sound like that, but the idea is you're just kind of squeezing it down. But the concept of, for me, one or two amplifiers, dotted eighths to the left, quarter note to the right, that's just kind of my deal. The neat thing about this is that, for me, one of the important things, if you kind of look behind me, you're going to see a few amplifiers. And I am an amplifier fanatic. In fact, the amp that's directly behind me was the second amp that I profiled, or excuse me, captured. I said the P word. Profile is obviously, for those of us who speak a Kemper, is Kemper-centric. This guy captures. So, you know, one of the first things that I wanted to know was, well, what happens when I start capturing this? First of all, they have made the process really easy. The first capture that I did was of the Mark II-C, sorry, the JP2C there. And I was just like, I can't believe it sounds as great. And again, what I did was I basically brought up 2 instances of the amp and then did stereo delays. One of the interesting things is that there are various rig templates. So I just want to take a quick moment and just talk about whatever it is that you're doing in the analog world, you're just going to do it in the digital world. And if you're just living in the digital world, quote unquote, or toggling between the two, you basically just set up your rig. What's neat about this particular rig that I've got set up is that's a JCM 800 that was previously, I don't know whether Jose did that mod for John Sykes or John Sykes ended up with that amp, but that amp is unbelievable. Let's see, that should be a photo of the back of it. There we go. And if you take a look, you can see Arco Electronics, and you'll actually see on that little sticker, you'll see Jose's signature, and to the right of that, you're going to see Joe Satriani's signature. So the thing is, this amp is iconic. The version of the story that I've got, which I have not been able to officially confirm, just saying, is that apparently John Sykes had this amp. Joe wanted the amp and got the amp. And there are some sounds that this thing makes that it's just really, again, I have yet to confirm it, but playing through this thing, I can go, that song, that song, that song, and that song. In fact, at some point, I will grab my Les Paul here, and I'll play the intro of one of these songs, and I'm daring myself to get a copyright claim because it sounds so much like it. There's no way that the little engines out there aren't going to do this. So, all right. So with all that said, the way I want to use this is I want to capture my favorite amplifiers, and in turn, I then want to be able to build rigs around them. One of the things that Mitch Gallagher said in his deep dive, which again is phenomenal, I love Mitch, is that it doesn't allow you presently to capture time-based effects. And so this morning, after a very short sleep, one of the things I tried doing was capturing my CE1 chorus. Box is actually it's over there. But I bought that chorus when I was studying with Joe Satriani. He was using that to kind of split between his 2 Marshalls at the time, circa 1979, 1980, and I've had this thing with me since then. So I tried to capture it because it's a time, basically chorus is a short delay with modulation. It's really just like a long delay with modulation, but with a shorter delay. And because it's a time-based effect, presently speaking, the Quad Cortex was not able to capture it, which really was a bit of a bummer. However, what I was able to do was then go, well, let me throw the CE1 in the loop. And I was like, oh, snap. And so, you know, for me, the most important part of the experience is to sit down with a piece of gear and just get into the zone, which is why I slept for 2 hours last night. I was having a merry old time. And the amazing thing is to capture, oh, there we go, that amplifier, which is one of the most iconic amplifiers. It's, in my understanding and to my ears, all over Flying in a Blue Dream, which is one of Joe's most iconic records. There's also a riff that I'll play a little bit later that is off of Crystal Planet, which is just celebrating the anniversary, which is perhaps even my over-surfing my favorite Satriani record. I just could listen to that over and over. The point being is that I want to be able to capture a tone and build it. Once I switch over to the Les Paul, you're also going to hear that it does Van Halen, it does Lynch, it does all the guys that have been my meat and potatoes guys. It does a whole bunch of other stuff. On Tuesday night, I'm going to be using this on the Worship Guitar Show, which is the other stream that I do, and I'm going to be doing a bunch of clean tones. This today, unless I start poking around, is not going to be clean tones. Really what I want to do is kind of give you a user-centric approach of how to go about setting up presets and in turn how to map those out into scenes. And then you can also kind of set those up as stomps, which I haven't done yet, simply because once I've got it set up in a scene, I can do that. The workflow is incredibly easy. The capture process is incredibly easy. I want to take a quick moment and let everybody know, there we go. Melissa has in the chat given people the link to the form for questions, and I will be getting those responses. Melissa Doppler commented on my post. Hey, Mel, can you do me a big favor and text me the results page so I can grab that. In the meantime, let me open up chat over here inside of this application window. And first of all, so excited to be able to share this with you. This is, whenever you have a chance to have your hands on brand new technology that is not currently available for everybody, it is a very special opportunity. And, so first of all, anybody that's new here, I want to thank you for showing up. And I'm super excited to be able to do that. So first of all right. Okay. So a man in the know. What's going on, Sean? So yes, so it's got the Arco Electronics sticker on it. So like that is the deal. So let me just take a moment, and I'm gonna have to mute the mic. So I have no idea why my audio interface is blatantly showing input from the microphone. Ecamm Live is blatantly hearing the guitar as you could hear before, but for some reason it is not hearing inputs 1 and 2. Figured it out. Okay. I wonder if I can route that too. All right. In any case, Melissa Doppler. All right. So here's the thing: is what I want to do is I want to walk you through this little bad boy and kind of talk about what I've got going on here. On the left here, I've actually got, as you go across the, I think it's 3. How about 4? There we go. As you go from left to right there, that's basically your signal path. And I set up 2 independent paths because as of right now, I haven't figured out how to use a single path and get it to actually route the delays to the left and the right. There we go. Hello, Melissa. So the deal is that this is input 1 and then input 1 again. And then what I've done is I've routed input 1 to output 1 on this first path. And on the second one, I just routed it to output 2. Super easy to do. And honestly, in many ways, it's nice and clean. So you can kind of just see what's going on. So from left to right, what you've got here is an overdrive that is currently not engaged. Then what we've got is a noise gate that is on, and that's the Jose amplifier. This is another gate that is basically off, so I'll just bypass that. And then what I've got is this lovely vintage delay here. It's a tape delay, which is kind of my go-to thing. And then basically this guy's got the same thing more or less going on, except for the fact, again, basically the TS-808 is off for now. Then I'm running the loop, and this is where I'm bringing in the CE1 in the effects loop there. And so what I'm doing is strategically, because this guy only captures in mono right now, I'm like, okay, well, I'll set up 2 paths and I'll bring in the stereo output of the CE1, which is the second output. Otherwise, it sounds to mono and it doesn't sound the same. It's a pure stereo. And I bring that over here and that's what's there. And then this is another gate. This is the second instance of the Jose amp. Another gate, which again, for all intents and purposes, by the way, this is where you bring up the threshold and it's effectively off, but I'll bypass it. And then in turn, we're going into another vintage delay. And this is where you set up the outputs. Output 1, there we go, and output 2. I mean, it's just so crazy easy. So let's see, let's head back over here. All right, so heading over here. All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the chorus off actually, and I'm gonna switch inputs, which is gonna mute my mic. So let me turn the chorus off. And simple as going like that. And let me play a little bit without the chorus on. And here we go. And you know, it's pretty easy to do all of that. In a minute, we'll kind of map some of that stuff out to some scenes. But let me just hop in. There we go. Let me hop in and take a look here on what's coming in here. Let's see. Tom doesn't appear to be streaming. Whoa, it's Tom. Oh, I love that when people are known. Tom from the TGP. I love it. Okay, good. All right. First of all, Dusty Nuts for Sale. Nice to meet you. Daniel, what's happening, man? Thanks so much for joining us. Alan, always a pleasure. That's awesome. Thanks so much. Always appreciate your support. Jim, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. I like the video just because you spend time for us Quad Cortex fans. Awesome. Mr. Kyami, pleasure to meet you. Like that photo there, too. All right. Let's see. Burned, excuse me. Learning how to read. Thanks for joining us, man. Okay, Aaron, we're all here. Okay, no mic sound. There we go. Looks like all right, hang on a second. Looks like the Andertons are that pedal show, but way messier in the background. Awesome. Okay. All right. Ivo, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. All right. Joris, pleasure. Not hearing the amp, only weird chorus and whammy. Well, I can turn the chorus off. How about that? Let's turn that chorus off. Let me jump back and let me just go back to this crazy little toggling thing that's going on here. It happens. Here we go. Okie dokie. George, thank you for the heads up. Always good to hear feedback. It helps me do a better job, so thank you for that. Aaron Short, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for hanging out. Aaron has a great live stream primarily on the awesomeness of acoustic guitars, but he's also a Helix guy and a great friend from the internet, though we have yet to meet in person. Good morning, my friend. All right, Alan. No behind the head playing. That was last night. Awesome. Okay. Sylvian, bonjour. Thanks so much for joining us from France. It's awesome. Epic playing. You're very kind. Thank you so much. Half, nice to meet you. Or is that half or whatever it is, welcome. Okay. So let's see here. Too many effects. All right. Well, hang on. We can turn that off. I can do no effects, so hang on a second. Let's do this. Let's do that. Now, here's one of the other things that really blew me away about this. So as I went in and I created this capture, one of the things that I did was this particular patch was I went in and I just like, I don't know, and I did something I could never do with the traditional amplifiers. Like, how do you take an amp that's at a setting and then add more gain? So this guy right down here, is this the gain control? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to back that off. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other one of that guy, like that. And what I'm going to do, just to get a little bit of stereo separation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce this up and pull this back. And then I'm going to do the opposite, pull that back and bounce that up. And okay, and that's coming into the mic, so hang on a second. Let me do this. Now, the amazing thing is I have this great foot switch here, which is not doing me any good this morning. I don't know about you, but for me, so Chris, I hope that was a help. And again, feedback is how I do a better job. So I don't even know what to say about that. It's just like, it was as if I was sitting there with an actual Marshall, just kind of going, all right, let me turn it down, let me turn it up. That for me, just being able to do that inside the box, and that's just the gain control, is cool. So let me just back up on a step and talk about what I was doing, why I kind of made a couple of the adjustments other than the gain. So by turning the bass up and the treble up on one side and the bass down and the treble down on the other, it just allowed me to get a little bit more stereo separation. And it just means that the guitars sit just a little bit wider. They do what I like to refer to as open and close differently. And then if you add effects, it just kind of adds that more. So okie dokie. All right. Hey, oh, awesome. Let's see if I can add you to that. There we go. Hang on a second. Actually, thank you. Awesome. And I wouldn't have done it without you. So, I just kind of, my whole vibe was I was playing until like 4 in the morning. And I was just kind of trying different sounds. I'll grab the Les Paul, which is floating around here. When my audio interface decided to freak out on me, and I did a bunch of testing last night. And the one thing I will say is it sounds good on Facebook. I'd say it sounds about 80% as good as it does in the room here. So if you're hearing it on Facebook, you're going to notice that it actually, I was really pleased with the way it sounded on Facebook, but there is some compression happening with the algorithm. Okay. All right. Hang on a second. All right. So first and foremost, there is a link. Let me get out of the chat here and let me answer. And first of all, there should be a link everywhere you are. You should have the ability to, there should be a link to the questions, but I'm not seeing it on this particular Facebook here. So let me just go ahead and nab that real quick. And there's that. And I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to, yes, I'm leaving Facebook. Follow link. Thank you very much. And I'm going to cut and paste this. This is in the description on YouTube. And now it's also in the chat on what is one of my, there we go. That's weird. Why are you not doing that? Come on. Oh, okay. Hang on a second. Here we go. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. There we go. Edit. Okay. So if you've got questions, there we go. There's this form here, and that's going to enable you to just kind of help me stay on target. Otherwise, I'll be with my face down in the chat, which is actually a great place to be, but it means that I can do this in a little bit more organized fashion. All right, so here we go. And okay, Kim from Denmark, how you doing? Which firmware version is used on Quad Cortex? That's a great question. I don't know. How about that? All right, so we've got to our first I don't know here. So let's see. Let's go to settings. Device options. Device updates. To tell you the truth, I don't know where that is, and I don't know how to find it. How about that for an answer? Let me make sure I've still got audio up here. I'm going to have to really be on this today. Sorry about that. Will you share captures from this video on the Quad Cortex cloud platform? That is a great question. So since somebody was going to ask that, this particular amp is on loan from a very, very dear friend of mine that loans me lots of really insane gear. So we're going to be bringing a bunch of captures and profiles to market based on that, as well as some of the different amps in the room. So that's one of the reasons I picked up the Mark II C Plus. That is one of the most iconic amps ever. And so I've got a 1964 Vibroverb, I've got a 1964 AC30, and it's not just capturing the amp, it's actually capturing the amp dialed in. And so there's some other things around all of that I'm not going to go into the reveal right now. So the answer, Kim, is no, but they'll be available commercially. I've spent a small fortune kind of getting this room back up and running, and it's going to take a little bit of time to recoup some of that outlay. I'm notoriously famous for spending money and not recouping it. but it's a great write-off. So really appreciate it. And do stay in touch, please. And by the way, anybody that's watching here, basically one of the new things that we're going to be doing with the show is there's always some new piece of gear that's floating into the room here, and so increasingly we will be focusing on what's new that we've got our hands on this week. There's something that's coming out on Tuesday that invariably I'm going to be using next Saturday, but I can't talk about it yet. But on the Worship Guitar Show, since it drops on Tuesday, I will be using it. See if I can get out of this live stream without actually saying it. Daniel, what's going on? I'm considering using Quad as my main interface, but I'm concerned about the noise level of the preamps in comparison to my Apollo. Thoughts on quality preamps and noise level? That is a great question. And thanks for signing up for the email list, by the way. So here's the thing. Super, super, super clean. That said, and so I'm an Apollo guy, and I've been a UA guy forever. So my answer is no. With a but. If I didn't have thousands of dollars sunk into UA stuff and have a history of being hired by them to demo stuff and absolutely love what they do, then it would be a different consideration. That said, at the point that you're looking to drop $1,500 on a Quad Cortex, the idea of investing however much it's going to be to jump into the UA system if you're not already there, honestly, in my opinion, there is nothing. I'm just going to say it. There's nothing that begins to rival the UA stuff. So the point being is the ability to take whatever it is you're doing and then cloak it in UA stuff. And I think what I did, the reason my mic's not showing up is I think I force fed on my update all my audio out of outputs 1 and 2 into the main thing, and that's why I'm not getting input 3 on this. So I outsmarted myself. But basically, when I was testing my audio last night, everything was in mono. I'm like, okay, something's wrong. So in any case, word of the wise is not only test all your guitar audio, but test your vocal audio. In any case, so the idea is, one of the things that I wanted to do with this was to hook up a vocal mic to it and use one of the 4 available paths for a talkback with the shotgun. But as I began to think about the fact that I would have to basically do exactly what I'm doing this morning to toggle that mic on and off. Although I actually have my little foot switch guy here. That's the workaround. But the idea of doing it from the box. By the way, that's a radial hot shot. Hang on. I can do that. It's not doing anything right now. So this guy is, besides the fact I really wish, you know what? I'm going to have this modified. I'm going to have a silent switch put in it. But basically, it has, as long as you look at it, which I sometimes don't, it allows you to be able to determine what's on or off. So the deal is that where that becomes, no, that's the other reason, right? That's why I couldn't do it. When I'm using my UA, I have the ability to basically mute the playback on my speakers of the microphone, and it passes through in the background. This does not give you the ability to do that because you don't have console. So for me, that was the reason that I was like, I can't do it. But for just about anybody else, I think I did not use it as an audio interface, but I can tell you everything that I've done so far. I've been like, wow, this is incredibly clear. So here would be my suggestion. If you're in the UA world, you're already where you need to be, and arguably, when you're in the best possible platform with the best possible plugins. And by the way, if you haven't tried the Lexicon 224 reverb, unreal. The best reverb I've pretty much ever heard. Unreal. Okay. Bart. Alan. Sorry about that. Daniel again. Thanks again. Alan. How do those encoders feel? So this is the interesting. All right. So I'm gonna be totally honest about my thoughts about the encoders. From everything that I've seen and people talking about, let me remove that. There we go. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. And again, I wouldn't have gone to that other little kind of, let's clean this thing up. I might have, but if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have. So, boom. I said in kind of the little video things like, we're going to do this together, and that's the whole point. This is a gear hang, folks. So thanks for hanging out. So the deal is that these encoders, basically, you can get inside a parameter here, and they're associated, once you figure out how to do that, and I haven't done that yet, is basically they're twisty knobs. which is really, really cool. Um, but the other thing about them is they're obviously traditional foot switches to turn things on and off. There are a couple of modes that you can get into. So I'm just right now, and you can toggle between the modes using these guys: stop, preset, and scene, depending on kind of how you've got this guy set. So let's see, 1B. What have I just done? Oh, right, that's me hopping through scenes. Oh, that's, all right, that's that guy. Testing, good, we got a mic. All right, so what we've got here, which one of these guys? Oh, I know what happened. You right here. No, you're on. And you're, there we go. So actually, that's a really good opportunity. Let me, you know what, I'm going to do it with the computer mic up. It's going to sound like dog meat, but what you just saw me do was engage the threshold on the gate, and that kind of, you know, dovetailing on the noise question. Really clean gate, and you know, if you watch, you know, some of the videos that the Quad Cortex guys do, they're some metal dudes. So the idea of putting a great gate in there is really important. So I literally just kind of, I don't know, turn it up to here, and it works great. As far as these foot switches go, they seem rock solid. And Rebea was talking about them kind of doing these tests where they would drop it and do all these different things, and it was fine. The thing that is a concern to me is that if you're wearing boots, so this guy, how do I say this? Can I do this in? Oh, I can do this like this. So if you're looking at the platform of the device, then the front is kind of angled. It's kind of at this gentle slope. My concern is trying to get to the back row of switches. I think I'm going to end up stepping on the front row. And I think that could be a performance issue. I don't know what the workaround for that is, other than to have a higher switch on the back row, which then increases the manufacturing cost. The other thing is that also if you've got a really wide foot or cowboy boots, actually cowboy boots, that's going to be kind of a problem getting to those front switches. So you're either going to be like aiming with aiming with the tip of your boot, or using the heel of your boot, which means then you're potentially getting this guy. Now let's see, you know, and I realize I've just done this gate thing. There we go. But that to me is a little bit of a concern. Now let me actually just say that traditionally in my modeling experience, because I grew up line 6, if you will, it's, you know, you basically this 4 on the floor. You really have your clean sound, your clean with some modulation, maybe some delay, then you have your crunch sound, and then you've got the full-on lead sound. If you can't make it through a gig with 4 basic sounds, I don't necessarily know that this box is going to solve the problems that it are. Now, again, some gigs you have a need to have a million different sounds, but honestly, for most guitar players, 4 sounds are going to get us there. You know, and 2, give me a good Fender clean amp and a Marshall or a Bogner or whatever it is, and I'm like, that's all you need, right? That's how they did it in the old days. And I love the fact that, you know, kind of part of my sentiment is I'm kind of an old school player. I grew up playing Ted Nugent and attempting to play Aerosmith because I couldn't actually play Aerosmith, but I could play Cat Scratch Fever, and just smiling because I was thinking about the fact that once I looked up and I was in my bedroom, and the local sheriff had somehow made his way into the house, and the look of shock and horror as he's hearing the onslaught of volume, and I just kind of looked up and I was like, hey. He was like, hey. In any case, all right, let's see here. Let me just jump back in before I non sequitur myself. Tom, how does it feel compared to Helix and Act Effects? That's a great question. So this is one of the things that I really, hang on, are you down in this other chat where I can pull you in? No. Sorry, so we have the online form as well. It feels great, and that was really the thing that really people give Boss a really hard time. And the GT1000 core is an amazing piece of technology. Jeff Slingloff is a dear friend of mine, and they have really gotten this tactile AI thing down. So that part of the equation, since the neural guys are kind of the latest and greatest to the party, they are they have the advantage. First of all, there's 4 sharp processors. I think Tom Quayle said they're 500 megahertz, which means you got basically this mega computer here. And from all the different videos that I've watched, people have said they've never gotten before above the mid 40% of using the CPU. So there is a ton of processing power. And this whole AI thing that's happening with that touch feel, the way it expands and contracts is huge. That's one of the other reasons I wanted to capture, quote unquote, one of my own amps. And in a minute, I also captured the JP2C. So we'll head over there. Ironically, I basically just took the exact same signal chain, copied it over, and just went, let's swap amps. But again, that's workflow, right? And one of the things that people have said repeatedly is that, like, hey, you don't really have to crack the manual to use this thing. And especially with the amazing videos that everybody else has done, it made it really easy to just kind of jump in and do my thing. All right. So to answer your question, it feels great. The other thing is, let me see if, yeah, those are still there. All right, hang on. Let me mute Mr. Chorus. And I'm going to mute the microphone. Gosh, this is bugging me, just to be totally frank. And you're going to hear just the guitar, so hopefully I'll remember to turn the mic back on. But I'm going to just kind of mess with this guy, and I'm going to just kind of work around touch-sensitive stuff. And so let's try that. Here we go. And okay. So I'm kind of like, that's a lot of tones there. So in terms of, is it touch sensitive and does it respond to it? I'd say a definite yes. And again, one of the other comments that I saw, I think it was Tom Quayle, ridiculous video in a great sense, was how, it kind of behaves like a guitar amp. And this is the thing, it's like, if you've never played straight into the front end of a Marshall, I spent about, I don't know, 2 hours yesterday because I for today, thank you, for you and for me, if I were totally honest, us, I was like, I'm going to call my buddy. I want to grab that amp. I want to actually, I want to, I want to capture that thing. I want to see how it does it, And honestly, I was one of the things in Rebea's video about the capturing was I was concerned that maybe there would be some noise. But what I found is when it does the capture process, if there is some ground loop noise, like with the Boogie, there was some noise that I couldn't get out. And by the way, what I used to capture, which I should have mentioned this before, and I apologize that I didn't, was the trusty Waza tube amp expander. Why I chose that is the brilliant job that Jeff and the folks over at Boss did with creating a reactive circuit that you can fine tune for the specific amplifier style that you've got. And so when I captured the P word again, when I captured the Petrucci amp, their specific setting, it's low and low on the resonance. When you're doing a JCM 800, it's the opposite. It's actually at the high in the high setting. So the ability to manipulate basically the resonance and the presence means that the reactive load, that is modeling the appropriate interaction and feel that the amp is trying to have that relationship with the speaker cabinet. And it's a really, really important part of the touch sensitivity. So that nuance is why I went for that. I've got some other stuff. I'm very close with the Two Notes folks. In fact, you can see right up there, I pretty much have everything they make, and I love it. And the aux box there. But the thing that I really wanted to do was just be able to well, first of all, it was in the rack. And second of all, I was like, I think I'm going to go to that. And I could not have been happier. Although I wasn't using any of the effects in it, once you kind of are nabbing that guy, you got the speaker output. And that was one of the things that I did do was test it. So again, the touch sensitivity, I was like, yeah. And hopefully that little noodling there got the point across. Awesome. Thanks for that. So compared to Helix or Axe Effect, sorry, I actually didn't, I wasn't trying to avoid that. I rabbit trailed. So because Quad Cortex is the kind of the latest and greatest, I think they've had the ability in their algorithms to really get the touch sensitivity thing. Honestly, I love the concept of what modeling does so much. I was one of the session guys on Guitar Hero. One of my favorite tracks was using the GT10 on Ratchild. And, like that's some serious guitar playing that those guys are doing. And I was like, all right, I've got to capture that vibe. And it was literally just the GT10 out into Pro Tools. But, so this modeling thing, that was the better part of 10 years ago. This modeling thing has been great for a decade. It's getting better, and the touch sensitivity gets more the thing. But, like, I just really want to plug in, and, it's kind of like a car, right? Does it do what you need it to do? I drive a minivan. It does everything that I need it to do. But, again, if you kind of watch my workflow and the slightly fixated amount of gear that I work with, nuance is part of the thing, but ultimately I always go, can I just get in the zone, right? Which is why I was up until like 4 a.m. having a good old time. Great question. Have I tried it through a power cab or a Deuce Deluxe? Oh, Chris, what's going on? No, I haven't. And so this week what I'm doing is I'm doing a series of videos for Celestion on the triple cone, their new speaker, as well as the F12 X200. And so you can't see it, but to my left and to my right, I actually have a pair of Power Engine 60s that I've reloaded with the F12 X200 speakers. And so the little cockpit here, if you will, allows me to do that. So I've been kind of trying a bunch of stuff, and will continue to be doing a bunch of stuff. So the F12 X200 is a little bit, it's a more expensive speaker, and it's a little bit deeper versus the triple cone, because it basically they've loaded the high compression driver on the front side as opposed to the back. It's more narrow, and I think I tried to put it in the Deuce Deluxe and wasn't able to, which is why I went with the Power Engine 60s. But I'm sure it would sound great because it sounds great and those sound great, and those are great options. And the great thing about the Deuce Deluxe that I love is, like, say you're running this guy straight into the Deuce Deluxe, you can run out of the XLRs out of the Deuce Deluxe, and it's really very much like what it sounds like going into it. And it's a great routing option. Great to see you, my friend, by the way. GTD from LA, what's going on, my man? Can you play clean tones with reverb delay chorus? How does it stack up against the Helix and Kemper? All right, so I knew this was going to come. So you know what? So let's do this. I am going to make sure I'm on the right thing, and I'm going to warn you in advance. No, I'm going to switch to the unit. No, I tell you what. Hang on a second. Yeah, hang on a second. Get out of here. All right, so we're going to go over to. I don't need to save Jose. Oh, why not? Yeah, I'm going to save Jose. So, by the way, sorry. Take you along for the journey. So just basically the save function is this little, it's like a little floppy disk icon. You just go boom, and then you see a little green check, and it lets you know that it saved it. So I'm going to go up to 1C here. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong mode. Hang on. Let me get into preset. There we go. 1C. Oh. All right, so I'm going to, and you will hear me kind of walking through this. So I'm just going to build something from scratch. And let's see here. Let's get up to amp. And I'm going to go for, I want to do a deluxe because that's just kind of the California one. Oh, they got the Lone Star. So literally I was, for my whole thing, I was, oh, that's the other thing. Hang on. I'm going to go to this version of this. There we go. We can all see it then unless you're on a mobile device. Okay, so let's take a look at this here. Are we going to be under F? Is that where the Fender stuff is going to be, or is it going to be, did I already go past it? UK, all right, US, there we go. Oh, you've got to be kidding. I love these guys. Okay. This is a moment I've been waiting for. So let me explain why I'm having a little gushy moment here. Nobody, with the exception of 11 Rack, has actually modeled / captured the super reverb. Thank you, Neural DSP, and thank you for asking this. All right. Ooh, baby. Let me switch to the right mic so it doesn't sound like dog meat. And it's a good start, but I have a strong feeling that there is no cabinet involved in that mix yet. So, gosh, you just gotta love this thing. All right, so now we're back in guitar. So I'm believing that there'll be a 410 in here because there needs to be, and there will be. There we go. 4. Come on. There's no way they don't. Oh, okay. Brit. So California. All right. Where were you? You were down at the bottom there. Don't tell me you don't have the 410 in there. All right, so these guys have thought of pretty much everything. So if the 410 cabinet isn't in here yet, or I just scrolled by it, it will be. 210, that'll get me there. We're going to go with the 210, use Tremolux. All right, that's one of the other things about these guys. Check this goodness out. Oh, baby. All right, boom, and so you've got this great little GUI here where you can just kind of, come on, there we go. You can fiddle around with all this. I mean, seriously, like, wow. It's just like, so we've got the 57 on this side, and we're going to change this guy out. How do I change that? Come on. Oh, I don't. Do I not have the choice? Oh, there we go. I want to go. Where's my 121? Come on. Where is my 121? All right. Well, I don't have a 121. It looks like, but I'll go there. Let's add a little verb here, and let's go for a spring. Oh, so, right. Sorry, I've got the mic up. So now what I'm going to do is bring this mix down, and then I'll switch back over to all right. Let me give you a little bit of something that sounds actually like real music. Yeah. Okay. Kind of digging that. So, yes, I didn't add the reverb and delay, but I was kind of digging that. Uh, all right. Somebody's asking about a fuzz model. Let me just go through the questions. Let me make a mental note. And guitar tabs daily. What's going on? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thanks everybody that's here. Dan, and what's going on? Detroit. My mother hails from Benton Harbor. I've spent lots of time in Michigan. And matter of fact, I've played at Harpo's. That is some neighborhood there. In any case, welcome. Really pleasure to have you on board. Could you use some stock amps to give us a feel how the stock sounds? So there was the super reverb. Make sure I've got this mic. Good, right input. Which I thought was really cool. And yeah, let me come up with some more, and I'll come up with some other little fuzzy thing. Yes, 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 and yes. Thank you. James, please notify me of your presets. Also looking forward to the worship presets too. Awesome. James, thank you so much, and welcome. Welcome. Jim, all right. Hey, what's going on, my friend? How does this respond to you? Okay, what I mean is the smoothness when fretting. The notes just roll off your fingers, feels good, sounds great. Yeah, the thing, again, it's an interest. First of all, that's a great question, and it's kind of been a common thread, which Tom Quayle, I thought, touched on it the best verbally. But I will also say that Rebea's video, especially the first one, and he does this thing. It's really, when he's playing, he does this kind of, it's almost a little mouse-like thing. When he's really into it, his mouth starts moving. I just love watching that guy play. And it's what he's not saying, and you're just like, oh, there it is. And just the feel of it. But this whole AI thing is really where this next generation is going to go. And again, that's kind of one of the reasons why I really wanted to make sure when I did the capture that I was able to, first of all, big reveal. I wanted to know what it sounded like with my amps. honestly what it sounded like with the internal amps for me personally. Because honestly, if I were to be totally like, I don't. Here's the thing: I don't basically, like I told a client recently, I don't do what I do for money. I never have, except when I was in my 20s. I thought I was going to like live in some giant mansion in Los Angeles, and I would have killed myself if I'd had the life if I wanted. Thank God. That said, this box for me, one of the things about it is it's a giant cash box, just like the Profiler. But I don't do it for the money, but I do it such that when I go to my wife and say, look, you know, I'm trying to be responsible, and there's a business side to why I'm investing in the gear that I am. I can actually look her in the eye the next time when I want to buy that next camera, and she can kind of go, you've been a good steward, right? And so as far as this goes, I was relatively uninterested about how the internal capture sounded, because honestly, how do I say this? My amps are better. I don't know anybody besides my buddy who loans me amps that has a better collection of amps that I do, that I have access to, other than the friends that I have access to. That amp right there, when I grab the Les Paul, you're just kind of like, oh snap! It's unfair how great that amp sounds, except for the fact that it's like, my wife was at work, socially distanced, of course. She came home, and you know, it's one of those things where, you know, that amp and that amp, you know, for me to be hanging out with them, it's bone crushingly loud. So the thing is to be able to actually just steal their souls and stuff them in this box, and be able to go. And first of all, thank you for all the amazingly positive responses. Like, people, I've spent a ton of money building this collection of amplifiers, and especially as of late, because I know I'm going to be creating this range of sounds based on them. So this guy is just a cash box. It's just kind of like, and I already have, this one has to go back to the folks that loaned it to me on Tuesday. But I've had one on order for a minute, so you know, I'm buying one. But it's just like, that's going to pay for itself. But more importantly, as much as I could say it's a big cash box, it's not the reason why I do it. And I said it to a client, and they were like, I know. I do this because I love it. And somebody asked me recently, another guy called me up who's in the gear demo business, kind of going, and I'll keep it short-ish. You know, would you do this if you like inherited $10 million? I'm like, well, what else would I do? I get a chance to hang out with people and serve them in their journey to Tone Quest. We get a chance to do this together. You draw something out of me. I go someplace I wouldn't have gone on my own, and I have the privilege of being able to do this with other guitar fanatics. What else would I be doing, you know? So with that said, the internal amps sound really, 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 really good. What I am waiting for, and as I understand it hasn't dropped yet, is the ability to load the neural DSP plugins. The Corey Wong, but most importantly, the Plini plugin is the best standalone plugin I've ever played. I was just like, I could not believe how amazing that thing sounded. So like, these guys are rock stars. They obviously understand this universe really well. And I love the fact that they've got the standalone plugin. You know, the Plini plugin of including stuff that I can't talk about, not associated with me, but exciting stuff that you'd be excited about. In any case, you know, the idea is I want to capture my amps and just be able to go. So literally the second capture out of the gate was that amp. And I was just like, it's a way better playing experience than actually playing through the actual amp, because I can actually play until 4 a.m. and nobody's going to kill me. Yes, it just feels great. Scroll some of the effects briefly. Yeah. Let's see here. All right, let me get off of, I'm going to stay on the clean sound for a minute, and I'm going to mute this flipping microphone. So sorry about this mic thing. You have no idea. Andrew Bonica, what's going on, my man? Let me walk you through what I was doing here because it's important. So basically, especially if you speak Helix, these little icons will look a little similar. So this guy is my overdrive thing to basically swap out that's a big muff pi. And I actually have that one over there. Here's the deal: is without going too far down the rabbit trail, all these vintage effects, and this is kind of, fine. We're going there. Every single one of these vintage effects. You can't see it, but that shelf is filled with one of the most prolific wah-wah collections I've ever seen. There's one guy in the UK that actually has completely lost his mind. I'm only slightly. All these things over time experience what's called part drift. And back in the day, they were like it was crazy days back. That's kind of how things were done. So they're like, hey, let's get those parts, and like there was no consistency. So every big muff sounded different. I have a big muff pi that sounds. Well, hang on. I haven't done any adjustment on it. Give me a moment. Let's see if I can make it sound like. Hang on. I'm going off frame. Give me a moment. There we go. Oh. So this guy is one of the great things about this show is that increasingly we're not only going to be covering the new stuff, but we'll also be doing these little mini featurettes called Doppler's Vintage Vault, because I actually have to use this stuff. The other thing is I'll be capturing and profiling these things as well. So this is the pedal that when I was studying with Joe, that was actually Joe's, the thing that he was using in lessons. And I have a recording of Banana Mango, which came out on Time Machine. And it's me and Joe trading solos and through this big muff, and his was woollier than mine was. They were similarly voiced, but his was woollier, and the tone was unreal. So this is pre-Ibanez Joe. It's the Kramer is what he was playing then, and it was pre Not of This Earth Satriani. I mean, it was just like sitting this far away from Joe when he wasn't yelling at me for not practicing was an amazing experience. Boom, and then kind of this is a modern issue. So let me see what I can't do to make that sound a little bit more like my big muff here, because I didn't actually do any adjustment there. So rather than just dialing them up and going, I don't know, it doesn't sound like it, let me turn the sustain all the way up and see what happens. And I'm going to, there we go. So this is what I'm going to say here, and my wife's listening, so I am blatantly kind of going, little leverage. Shush. Oh, you know what? Hang on. Let me go ahead and instantiate a gate. So I'm going to basically take the amp block. Oh, I guess I've got to be out of there. There we go. And I'm going to drag that over here to that node, and then I'm going to install a... Where are you guys? There we go. A utility, and that's where I'm going to put in a simple gate. And then with a simple gate here, there we go. That threshold's good out of the box, so to speak, and then it's silent. The reality is that I've spent a lot of time collecting the right devices, and I guess I am now shamelessly self-promoting. But the deal is that when you Lincoln Brewster is a dear friend, and he and I have had this ongoing conversation. It's not just that like, hey, it's a blah 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 Marshall. Well, it's like kind of vintage Fender guitars. This is the Yngwie signature. Yngwie only buys great guitars, so guess what? His signature guitar is going to be a great guitar. But not every vintage Fender guitar was great. Not every Marshall has had Jose like making all the things special. So the end result, hey, shh, 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 shh. So the point being is like a lot of the stuff that gets modeled, it just wasn't a good model. So guess what? It's not the problem of the device. It's the fact that it didn't sound great in the first place. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited. Like this, the CE1 that I brought in at the top of this thing, with that kind of Satriani vibe. Like, so I was like, I kind of woke up after 2 hours sleep and I was like, capture the CE1. I wasn't able to do it, but I brought it in the loop. Which again, somebody asked a question about how's the fidelity of the routing. Super clean. I've never actually heard the score sound better. But the idea of having, just because you got the effect, this is one of the downside of having captured bass stuff, is just because you had the capture of it didn't mean it was necessarily a great one. No slight on these guys. It's just like I've spent decades, and let me be really clear, POV, phenomenal. I'm just older than like pretty much everybody that's in the room there, which means I've been collecting this gear since before they were born. How about that for an answer? Yeah, and so I'm going to continue to play through some more of those effects. Did you get my rig question from a few weeks ago? Michael, can you do me a favor? No, I didn't. So sorry, I'm reading this question. So Mike, put it through again, and if we've got time at the end, and basically I canceled lessons because today I've got to go to work, as opposed to working. I'm working. So shoot that through at the end, and I'll, even though it's quote unquote not on the topic of the day, I will be happy to answer that for you. All right, Joris. Hey, do you feel you're missing the options to dial in the capture further? Also, the feel of the quality control has been mentioned often to be more like a real amp compared to other devices. Would you agree on that? That's a great question. Having spent 2 or 3 hours with that amp yesterday at bone-crushing volume, and then kind of plugging it in. All right, I got to switch guitars here real quick. And the last little bit that I did, and again, there were a couple of things that kind of got mayhemic this morning. Going off camera here, but I'm going for the Les Paul. Feet don't fail me now. So, as I was kind of, sorry about that, folks. As I was kind of, here's one of the other things that is a feature thing. Sorry, Joris, I'll come back to you in just a second with a full answer. This is a little bit of a problem. If I'm going for the A foot switch and I got my boot, this guy should literally, in my opinion, be a push down and pop up. But literally, this is your master volume, and I have not, as of yet, found a way to lock that. The logical thing would be to just kind of get it to go all the way here. But the problem is that in the middle of a gig, so like, and I've had this happen in the middle of a gear demo with a piece of gear whose name I won't mention, but I was like, I moved the big knob, and I didn't know where it was before. That is your main output to the front of house board. That's your input if you're in the middle of a track and you accidentally, adjust it. So obviously the thing you want to do most likely is turn it all the way up. But the fact that you can kind of catch it with your boot there. The other thing is like, I got to tell you, that's right in line with being stepped on. Like if you're trying to not step on this, oh, sorry about that. Hang on, there we go. Get out of there. If you're trying not to step on this encoder, that volume knob, I am absolutely positive after watching what, I was up at Analog Mike's at one point, and there was a tube screamer that I think Kenny Wayne Shepherd had just destroyed the shell of. After I watched what happened to that shell of that thing, I'm looking at that volume knob. Somebody's going to put their foot and that thing's going to go right straight in there. And my guess is the circuit board just kind of runs across there and it's going to destroy the whole unit. So that is a point of liability. Even just some little thing, like the Boss makes those cute little rubber pedal condoms that kind of fit over the top of the knob such that they don't get turned. Something like that needs to protect this guy. And again, the thing that I would suggest doing would be a push up and push down, or some sort of feature in that. That's a liability in my opinion. But that said, I need to do this. And all right, good. And so far, I haven't managed to do some long extended talking thing where I'm. Ooh. All right. So. All right. In a minute, I'm going to head back over to that other patch, but I wanted to switch guitars. Okay. Let me just head back here. So as far as the quality control of the thing and the ability to, so there's a couple questions in there which are great. So one is the how close it came, and so let me break that one little vertical down. My biggest fear was that I was going to suck at the capturing process of setting it up right, and I was going to basically embarrass myself in front of you collectively because I wasn't able to kind of capture the nuance of it. It was so easy. And literally when you go into, hang on, you've probably seen somebody do this, but let me walk through the capture of this. Hang on a second. Let's do this. So if you go to new neural capture, hang on, let me switch windows here. There we go. So if you go to new neural capture, it literally walks you through this whole menu. And I'm sorry, this guy, let's see if we can do that. No. Hang on, let's see if I can do something about that. Just one sec. Am I on the right device? I am. All right, my colors will not be identical, but can I do anything about the saturation? There we go. Hey. All right, I apologize that our colors are a little funky on this, but so basically that just says next. You may not be able to see that, but what's great about this is, all right, put your instrument in return 1. So that's basically, right, that's send 1, that's return 1. And then basically then you just go to next, and then it says to basically make sure you've got the XLRs hooked up, which I do. And then it's like, okay, capture out, which is this guy right there, the top row. There's double rows in the back. And then you just go into the input of, the input is going to be basically the capture point for me coming out of the, Sleepy Doug. Come on, the Waza tube amp expander. And then you're basically ready to go, then you confirm and you did it. We don't need to do a capture here. We're backing out. Come on. Confirm. Oh, I got to confirm. All right. So hold on a second. Let's not do, there we go. All right. So the point being, it's pretty straightforward. So it goes through this process in the demo that I saw Rhett Scholl do. This is a more modern version of the firmware. Because when Rhett was doing it, it made all these kind of crazy bomb sounds. And same the thing with the one that Pete Thorne had, where Pete made a comment that I was very concerned about. Right over my shoulder there is that's probably a 72 or 73 small box Marshall. But below that, peeking through there is a pinstripe 1967 Marshall pinstripe cabinet with date code appropriate speakers, Holy Grail speakers. But one of the things that Pete said he was concerned about was the volume of the signal going through in the capture process. Now the capture process is silent. So this is something that they obviously addressed, and the idea of and Pete's comment was right. He said, if I were playing some vintage amp with vintage speakers, I would be concerned about that. And that was a good heads up. That issue has been addressed, and so, the idea of being able to capture these different things in different nuances is important, and it gives you the ability to select line or instrument level. And there is not, then there's the A/B and back and forth. And I found that the great thing about it is it was really, really close. And then what I went in, and that's you might have heard me kind of pissing myself about in a good sense, was about the fact that then I kind of went into the model and went well, what happens if I turn up the gain? Because the Strat into the front end of an amplifier. Where's the Yngwie pedal? Yngwie, come home. The YJM pedal. The 308 is floating around here. I needed that to get that amp kind of into the zone. But kind of just turning up the gain there, it was kind of like the magic Marshall knob that doesn't exist. Where you're I want to leave everything where it is. I just want more gain. if you've ever spent, and like there's one of Joe Satriani's Marshalls, that's a higher gain modern Marshall, not like that, but that guy and those two, oh, um, if you've ever sat there with the vintage Marshalls, like they are not easy to play. They play you. You don't play them, unless you're better than I am. But the point being is they give you a workout. So the point being is being able to then take the foundation of that and just go more gain. That's something that you normally can't do without shifting a bunch of other stuff. I kind of went, I can't believe it did that. Shocking and incredibly impressive simultaneously. So that said, I found the post part of that process of being able to not only kind of, if there was any kind of discrepancy, then being able to fine tune it afterwards, and arguably, just for the sake of conversation, because it is an important part, you want to, Gabe. So I'm going to briefly, because I saw Gabe's comment come in. So I tried the pedal capture function on my CE1, and because it's a time-based effect, it wouldn't do it. But there is a demo with Mitch Gallagher doing it with the dude on the Sweetwater one, the deep dive. It's phenomenal. But I was really bummed because this was kind of like, and stupid me. And Mitch actually says you can't do it on time-based effects. And I was like, it's what happens when you have 2 hours sleep and you wake up and go, let's capture the chorus. It's like, it's a time-based effect. But, it did verify that it was not able to do it. But it sure sounds great in the loop. So coming back to this point here, any difference, I couldn't really feel, that much of a I want this guy. There we go. Ooh, right. We want you back on. Let's see that. That would be. There we go. We want that guy. We got that guy. That's. Oh yeah. Okay. And I don't have the right mic, or I should say the DI up. So the ability to then just get in and I mean, here's the thing. By the time you add some delay and, some other stuff to it, is anybody going to know the difference in the mix? That's not really the question you're getting at. I totally hear you. But it was so close, I was just like, freaky. And in some ways, sometimes you may get a little tiny bit of compression. Although that's the thing about this amp, it compresses extremely well. But here's the other part. Part of what my week is about coming up is I've got like 16 speakers from Celestine that are here. My gig on their full range live responses is to take microphones and it's a pair of DPA 2011Cs that are extremely flat, that most people have never used that microphone. So I'm already waiting for the comments. Well, can I sound good with a $1 microphone? I'm just like, I know it's coming. You just know it's coming. It's like, sorry, you want me to use a microphone that everybody knows totally colors the sound. How's that? No. The whole concept of capturing full range live response speakers is kind of putting them in different types of boxes. So we know that, how am I going to show you what that amp actually sounds like, right? You know what your amps and capture sound like, but nobody in the world is going to know that. My ability to put that amp in this box and for you to be able to buy that with some of the other stuff that I'm going to be not talking about today. But it's going to be an amazing opportunity to help other musicians not only get better sounds because they don't have access to that amplifier. And I'm fortunate enough to do it, but my whole thing is I'm not a hoarder. I'm just like, I finally get a chance to share these pieces of gear. And it's so close, like, I don't know, 85, 95%, that probably if I was sitting there, once I kind of do any little tweaking back and forth, I'm like, I don't know. I remember sitting up in Lincoln Brewster's place and he's doing the AB thing. I'm like, I don't know. So the whole point is, at this point, not only do you not know, it's like you don't necessarily know which one you like better. And quite often I like the one that's the model better. It's a great question, though. And I thoroughly took the bait and rabbit trail on that. And I will be kind of coming back to a couple of others. And I want to actually see if I can kind of jump into this little vibe here for a quick second. I'm going to come back and hit some more questions real quick. Oh, like, it's a Les Paul, just like, wait a second. The funny thing is I kind of went to that, I don't know, D sus and then D sus 4, and kind of I don't know, that's a C major 6. I don't know, and then it's a sus 2 or something, and then a B minor 7 sus 4, and then a B minor 7. And I was like, I kind of went to one of those chords. I'm like, oh, I know that sound. And so the funny thing is that was the thing off Crystal Planet. I'm kind of curious. Stratmania, really enjoyed the stream, but need to head off. Thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate it, and thanks for saying goodbye, dude. Boom. Join us again, please. Yeah, how about some John Sykes? I actually, I don't know any John Sykes. But hang on, let me get to the right sound here. I'm watching some cool comments there. I was like, little self-indulgent. Now you know I was up until 4 in the morning. Holy cow. I mean, all I want to do, just like you, I just want to have fun. Right. And I love the kind of the probing questions like, okay, but like, seriously, like, to be totally honest, yesterday was really the first day that I had a moment to properly crack this watch. I've been watching videos for a couple of weeks, but to literally just kind of walk out of the house, go grab the amp, come back and go, all right, let me do a test on one of my amps to make sure nothing goes wrong before I do that with that amp. And then I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Gabriel, awesome. That is a ridiculous sound for a model. Boom. Thank you, my friend. All right, let me jump back into the questions here for a quick second. And I know I've got to go back and pull up some more sounds. Fair enough about choosing purchase model instead of free sharing, but when do you plan to release this captures Jose mod and others for us to purchase? Oh, thank you, Kim. What a great pleasure. I need to this device goes back to the kind lender on Tuesday. So to tell you the truth, I'm going to need to spend more time than I've had definitively capturing all the ranges of sounds. Because here's the thing: is I think you don't want to just give some, especially with an amp like that. There's a bunch of stuff. Without mentioning his name, my amp tech is Joe's amp tech and Kirk's amp tech and James' amp tech. And when you say Kirk and James in the San Francisco Bay Area, I mean that Kirk and that James. And everybody in the Bay Area that's a professional player that wants the best amp tech, who's not a lunatic, because this guy is amazing. He's the guy you go to. And I've known him for 20, 30 years. Really great guy. And he's got this B3 in the back of his shop. He let me play this B3. It was, until you played a B3, you haven't really lived. I just got to say, as much as guitar is cool, when you hear that thing swirling and you're playing on it, you're like, oh. In any case, the idea is then he's going to walk me through some of the nuances about the amplifier because he has it diagrammed. And so he's going to kind of allow me to kind of know more about that circuit. And he's a huge fan of Jose's work. Jose Arredondo, and I can't roll the two R's, but it would be Arredondo, but who's no longer with us, but was I would have to say in my world, the greatest amp mod person that has lived to date, doing that thing. Just his what he did, and my guy was just like, he was just a pure genius. I mean, just literally the way he spoke about what he did, and he was like, and he did this thing, and he was just like, it's just doing things that sometimes people think of, just don't think about doing, but then they just understand the circuit and understand how to just milk the tone out of it. The point being is, sorry, long-winded answer to, I want to get it as great as I possibly can with as many different instruments that make sense, set in the right way, so that when you plug it in with your guitar and your kind of vibe, hopefully I will have provided kind of enough of the archetypes that will allow you kind of go, there it is. And that includes having the ability to wrap it in presets. So like, it's not just that it's captures. Like this is where this box and I are going to have a lot of fun, because here's the thing is like, I am madly, the reason I got hired to play Guitar Hero wasn't because I could play guitar. I did 17, I did Wrathchild, I even did bass on one of the versions of Wrathchild. I got hired because, and Play With Me by Extreme, is I was good enough at mimicking the other players, but that was about sound design and learning to hit the strings in a particular way, and also knowing which gear to use to attempt to do that. So this element of sound design is something in many ways I've been waiting a lifetime to be able to do and share with people, so you can actually have that experience where you're there at 4 a.m. with this box just in the same way that I was. And that way we get a chance to do this thing together. And that's so cool. So I don't have a definitive answer, but I can assure you the chairwoman of the board is very motivated for me to get on it ASAP. So the answer is, as soon as I get this box, my own one, I'm going to get to it right away. And I have a feeling I'll be relatively prolific. And the idea is that the 64 Vibroverb, the 64 AC30, and my amp guy said, your AC30 is one of the 5 best I've ever heard. And so the idea is it's not just that it's a 64 AC30. It is a great sounding AC30 that has been manipulated by the best hands that money can buy, and you can't actually get to my guy. But he's just the best. And I'm not saying about me, he's very secluded. All right. Will you be capturing an amp live? And I won't be. It'll be great for us to see without cutscenes from the process. Thank you. So that's a great question. And I won't be. So here's the deal is, I've got to find, okay, so this is the, and your point about the cutscenes is part of the whole thing, but I will go so far as to say, this is not the last one of these that we're going to do. Because one of the other things that invariably, this thing is, once everybody's got one of these, first of all, I have my own workflow, and you're going to have your own workflow, and I love that. But the thing is that there are folks like Gabriel that they're going to get this box and have never owned a mod. They're like, WTF am I going to do with this thing? Right? So the idea is having a strategy and kind of go, okay, because Gabe's got an Archon. I know what he's thinking. He's like, I can put my Archon in there. I already got you. And so, but again, classically with this, Gabe is going to be checking out with thanks, Mike. Ruby, hey. I've got multiple windows here in case you hadn't noticed, and slightly distractible. But the idea of utilizing it to capture with different instruments, that is one of the areas where a device like this really, really shines. Oh, that's one of the other workflows that I saw. And again, my job is to basically, and this is a fault of mine, but it's how I work, is to basically, and the great thing about kind of having some other people already have had time with this thing, I got a chance to watch a bunch of other workflows and see how people approach this unit. But I would have done most of what I had done the way I had done it. But what's great about this device is because you have two different inputs, you can have two guitars just sitting there ready to go, and or wireless units or whatever it is, such that you can, there's plenty of processing power, and you can even have a whole band. Ola did a demo where he's basically running all the different instruments, just reamping it through the different inputs. Well, not the drums, obviously, but the point being is that you have the ability to leverage the processing power in this thing. And again, nobody I've seen who's done this has gotten above the 50% mark. So the idea of being able to then kind of create individual sounds for each one of these, what's the thought process about that? Does that happen at the amp? Does it happen in the box? What works best? What's the best protocol? What seems to work? Does one particular guitar like to do it at the amp, where another guitar likes to do it at the box, where we're kind of fine-tuning the gain and the EQ structure? There is some information that has yet to be discovered, and that's part of my job. But the other thing is then there's the job, and then there's going way above and beyond. And that's kind of the zone that I love to live in. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer. That is to say, coming back to this, there needs to be some sort of, let's just say, and just thinking out loud, anybody that buys some of the packs, they get kind of some unlock code on my Kajabi site where there's some in-depth stuff, or there's just kind of quote-unquote members-only stuff. My buddy Mason from Vertex Effects has kind of this kind of group of people that he works with, kind of with a private live stream. So maybe that's one of the other things. I did a thing for the Helix and Sweetwater, where I get a notification pretty much every day now, where when somebody buys a new Helix for the House of Worship, I did this whole training course on how to do it. So Kajabi is this great content management system that I use. It's not cheap, but it's the best. I generally don't do stuff because it's the best. But when people are depending on me to provide a service, I've got to do my best to give my best. So the point being is that whether it's here on a Saturday, or whether it's some group of people that has kind of gained some entry point, where we do some private live streams, or where we walk through this whole thing and I wander around the room, and I've got a bunch of cameras, so it's totally doable. It's just in this particular Saturday morning thing, it's a little awkward to do it, but that's a great question, and it would be great to do that. So noted. And just, I'm so thankful that I did this because I'm just learning so much. So thank you. Really appreciate it, Dan. Sam from New York. In your opinion, does a quad cortex set the bar in the way that its competitors will need to follow suit in order to keep up with future consumer expectations regarding features and tones? Example, touchscreen, pedal and amp captures, as well as modeling, all in the same unit. Thanks. Great question. And thanks, by the way, on the email list. No, don't say that. Okay. I can say this. Being able to capture your own devices it's becoming the status quo. Now, I will say this. I'm just going to hold this box up here, and we're going to be doing a deep dive on this puppy very, very soon. The interesting thing is that this device is just phenomenal, and ironically, the reality is that the vision behind HX Stomp, and I teach it, as many I teach at the Satriani and the Petrucci Guitar Camp. So the Line 6 folks have done a great job of supporting that. So back when this box was this box, the prototype showed up kind of secretly, was shown to me at one of the camps. And I knew about this before it came out, and I was not one of the rat bastards that leaked it. Not cool. But basically, I was on a call with a couple of my guys at Line 6, and I was saying, hey, you know, I've been using the GT1000 core. I just, because, you know, I want people that I work with, because I work closely with the Line 6 folks, I want them to know that I'm going to look them in the eye and say, hey, I've been spending some time with the GT1000 core. And I actually said, I really love the fact that I can use the Morningstar MC6, which is a phenomenal controller. And so my guy kind of pulled this up and I went, you know, mic drop. So the point being is basically like, there's the MC6 built into this thing. So the reality is there are two sides of this. And that's you know, again, I apologize that I'm long-winded in these answers, but honestly, I think about this stuff a lot. And these are really great questions, and they deserve a proper answer. The thing that I love about Line 6 with Ideascape is pretty much that box was a bunch of people going, and it was literally the conversation. I said, hey, you know, I've been using the MC6, and like out that thing comes, I'm like, you know, when they say somebody's reading your mail, it's just like, because it's basically just going, you know, I wish, you know, I really love HX Stomp, but the lack of foot switches for me is just a deal killer. Unless I'm using some sort of MC6, and then I'm like, I'm in heaven, right? So they just basically went, this is what the people are asking for. We're just going to give it to them. So most people don't have this. So yes, they may have their stomps, but the other thing is that, yes, the idea of being able to capture your stomp and then flip it, capture and flip it, or buy it from somebody that you like the way they've got it set, and you know they've kind of taken into consideration some basic styles, some basic instruments that, you know, you've got those things set in a framework, if you will. That all of a sudden makes sense, right? And so, you know, I'm fortunate enough, my buddies at Warship Tutorials, they have sold over, I should say, collectively sold, and with some stuff where they let people get stuff for free from time to time, because they're free patches. They've got 100,000 downloads of patches. Like, I can't even conceive of that, right? You know, you know, hopefully in the next year they'll crack 1 million subs. They're in the 700,000s. People are wanting to just jump into the zone. The real question is, do they actually want to spend here? Okay, so it's a great question. And one of these days I'm going to add a jump in. There'll be some sort of vetting process, but I would love to just bring people onto the show and just like, give me your question, bring it in. And so the thing is that people sometimes just want to be able to just give me the solution. Let me load the patch. I don't have to buy the pedal. I mean, you know, honestly, in the economy of scale and the scale of economy, the ability to go, let me just buy your, you know, patch or preset, and, you know, your pedal comes in there, you know. And so, you know, most people don't do what I do. I mean, it's like there's 2 racks filled with pedals back there. I am engaged in this process, but not everybody else is the lunatic that I am. You know, but I'm uniquely positioned to help people kind of go down the same rabbit trail and be there as they make their journey. So that is to say, touchscreen. One of the comments that I made somewhere, or was thinking about making somewhere, is that basically the touchscreen, just making sure I've got the mic up. Okay, good. I was like, oh no. So the idea is that literally, hang on, this thing is basically just a hair big. I don't want to set it down there for fear of doing something crazy. It's basically just a hair bigger than your iPhone 10. It's like, that's huge. And the ability to kind of drag that stuff around, I think that is going to be something that we're going to see a lot more of. It's a great workflow. The other side of that, though, I bet if I was on the freeway and I threw my Dunlop GCB 95 out the window and I threw this guy out the window, I think I have a feeling which one would survive and which one wouldn't. One of them doesn't have a touchscreen. Now, you don't want to be throwing this puppy out the window, right? I get that. But there is also the part of this thing is like, my Marshall Governor, which I've still not had the switch fixed on, was destroyed by some drunken lead vocalist in a top 40 band more decades ago than I care to think of. Um, there is a vulnerability to have a touchscreen like this. Imagine a lead vocalist boot in the middle of this thing and you're done. 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 They're going to probably want to find some sort of protective thing. And again, stepping on that volume control. Lead vocalist, dark stage, toast, done. These guys are fine. I'm much more concerned about what happens, when somebody steps on this thing. I think I've dropped my iPhone, I've cracked that glass. I'm just like, there's a again. I generally, as a gear demo person, as a gear review person, I have strong relationships with the manufacturer. So most of the time, I always find the positive, and if there's something really negative and it's negative enough, I just won't review the piece of gear. There are things that come into the house, and I'll go back, and with one of the largest brands on the planet, I'm just like, I have a problem with this and I can't review it. And that's integrity, right? So, but in this particular case, those liabilities, you asked a great question, That said, the workflow of the touchscreen, flippin' love it. The ability, again, it's not unhelix like the idea of having this, but the encoders, I think that came from TC, had that, as I recall. I think you could do that with the G system, but I could be wrong. But the point being is that the neural DSP folks are stupidly smart, and they have the benefit of being the new kid, and they've done, they had the benefit and the disadvantage of hitting in COVID. I think their supply chain of parts from China has really been a problem for them, but they've had all these influencers out there, singing their praises. It's like it's a perfect storm for them. They are without they're selling like hotcakes, and that's all I can say. All right. Okay. All right. I don't get. So hang on. I'm going to grab this one. Hang on a second. I saw that one come up. Hang on a second. I got to grab this out of this. Oh, look at all this chat. You guys are awesome. Holy cow. All right. I'm going to pull that one in. It's an interesting thing about that. It's your UI, right? It's like, so it's your visual feedback, not just your tactile feedback. They're going to need to come up with, and Chad, last name completely escaping me, in the Line 6 community has created a series of protectors. They'll come up with something that you can put over the top of this, just like like the thing I took off my iPhone because I got flipping tired of having to get that stupid case. I got to put that back on there. So in any case, so to speak, it's an interesting thing. Hang on a second. So in terms of the captors, I've been making noise. Oh my word, 293 comments. You guys are awesome. So Chad Boston, thank you very much. Hang on. There we go. Chad Boston, there we go. We have a Helixer in the house. What's going on, the Mist? So Ben Silverman, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Hey. All right, this is dangerous when I start. Oh, there we go. Yeah, like Ben was like, hey, this is what happens when I start going backwards in the chat. It always ends up bad. So hang on, let me not do that. All right, so the thing is that the capture thing, for many people, is going to be an important thing, and I think the concept. If I were 12 right now, being, thinking about that generation, the way they're integrated with technology, I would want to be able to capture my pedals, so I didn't have to bring them with me to a gig. I wouldn't want to have to hook up, and it's a little out of frame, so I apologize for that. It was kind of a last minute thought, and I was like, I can't get them both in frame, but I can pull it up here. There we go. There's a CE1. And, it's like, I had to all right, I got to grab cables, and I'm running around, and, and I was kind of like, you know what? I actually dig it, but the ability to just put that thing in the box, if I'd had the ability to capture it, it would have made my life a lot easier. So the idea of I've got one box that kind of does it all. Now here again, that box goes down, and I think these guys are really. They also have the benefit of a lot of QC time up front. Again, that comment about and if you watch the Rhett Schuller video, it's making all these and Rhett's laughing, and he also says though, if you're watching with headphones, beware. That thing, it didn't do that on this particular one. So they obviously are listening just like the Line 6 folks are. And by the way, Doug DeCastro. Doug DeCastro, the genius behind this is also the guy behind the Dark Glass, the bass stuff. So like they have some experience going into it. So it's not like they just woke up on one day and said, "Hey, let's go to the NAMM show and spend a bunch of money and take people out to dinner, try and tell them that we got some new technology." They actually showed up ready, and that was really cool. All right, let me head back into Questionville. I hope that answered that well. Oh, thank you, Melissa. Benedict, hello. Thanks for the great playing. Could you demonstrate the rotary effect, please? All right, hang on a second. Sure. Let's see. That is going to require this. All right. Oh, that's actually really cool. Hang on. Are we on the down? There we go. I do enjoy the fact that you've got this visual feedback there. That is really cool. I think, was it 83 or something like that? Somewhere around there, 85. That's a cool feature. And you've got this bar. That I love it. That's the geeky stuff that, it's funny. My wife and I just bought a new minivan that we're waiting for. It's this new Sienna, and getting excited about a minivan is kind of a funny thing. But we're really excited about it. I wasn't particularly excited about all the new tech stuff that's in it, but I'll be excited to use it. And so that, I don't really care that it's got it per se, but I do enjoy the geekiness of it, right? So that kind of UI stuff is pretty cool to look at, and you're like, okay, it's a what was that Tom Cruise movie where they kind of had those kind of things where he was kind of touching and pulling stuff off. All right, let's get over here. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to switch microphones here, and I'm going to kind of do a couple of things. So there have been a couple of requests about different tones. Okay. And then let me just kind of see if I can't kind of hit a couple of these things simultaneously. And I need to be right there and switching over to here. This kind of the funny thing is it's slightly intimidating, but a lot of fun. Like taking gear requests like AC30. I love that, Sean. I will definitely pull that up. And the cool thing is that in that little video thing that I put together, I just kind of said we'll take a journey together. And the fun thing is that at 2 hours and counting, we're still hanging out on this journey. So thanks so much for joining me. The funny thing is I really hate the way these headstock tuners look, but they sure are convenient. All right, let me keep fiddling around here. Oh, hang on. While I'm doing this, I'm going to swap back over to the full screen view so you can see, in theory, which model I'm on. It was only a matter of time. Now I got the mic on. What's neat is there it is. Remember where I was and what I was doing. On the number 4 pickup selection, interesting thing that's happening here is I brought up basically the volume on the amp, which basically is reducing the headroom. So it means it's going to be more overdriven when you dig in, and it's generally going to be with a Fender amplifier, the bottom end starts to distort a little bit. But as I lightened up, I started to get this really pretty thing. So let me switch the mic off again, but that's kind of what I want to just point out. what's so funny is I would never do something like that in a traditional gear dome. I'm like, hey, let's hunt and peck. But I was like, that was a nice little expedition. The interesting thing that I discovered, and again about that particular model, when you lighten up is when kind of the candy starts to come up. And again, that's because I turned up the volume at the front end. And it's an interesting thing, just kind of that little spot. That's through the built-in mic, which means it probably sounds like dog meat. But yeah, okay. All right, back in the question land. All right. So rotary, yeah. So I kind of hit that there for a sec. I just wasn't totally. I wasn't totally there. So hang on a second. Let me head back into this thing. I'm too stupid. Oh, stop. There we go. Let's get done. I'm gonna head back to this rotary thing because I'm okay. Give me a moment. I want to kind of see if I can do that right. was looking for something with a little bit more gain on that, but I was happy with where I got. So the thing that I really loved about that was this speaker balance thing, that somehow did this very, very unique thing. And I'm going to bring this, I'm going to mess with that for a quick second, and so you can hear what it did, because that was really the special. What's kind of cool about a little vibe like that is that obviously there is a huge amount of, come on, oh, I got to get out of there before I can move that. There we go. And I will admit that touch screen is pretty darn intoxicating. I can imagine I'm going to go to programming something else, and I'm going to be going to touch the screen. I'm like, oh, snap, can't do that. I'm going to put a simple gate on there. Oops, that wasn't a simple gate. Hang on. All right, this, and by the way, good. So this protocol here, so basically if you want to change something, you just tap on it, brings up the parameters, and then you can just tap on this guy, and then tap on change device. And I wanted to go for simple gate, and now I'm good, and I hit done, and that instantiates that. So now what I got to do is bring this, why? Hello? Oh, okay. So this is another thing about this type of a deal. That's our drive pedal that's making the noise. So I'm going to, I wonder if I can actually do this. Let's see if I can do this. So I've got a bunch of blocks here. Let's see if I can just drag you up. There we go. Look at that. Problem solved. All right. So the thing about that vibe, univibe kind of Leslie rotating thing, there is a ton of deep dive stuff, which means the way that I would have approached that with a little bit more sanity, but it was actually good for you to watch me fumble, is to create the exact bass tone that I want. That is to say, kind of the Stevie Ray vibe or the Jimmy vibe, and then add that in there with the right thing. Now, the interesting thing is that up right there, I think that's where it is an actual Univibe that I spent some time plugging into that beast with yesterday. And the interesting thing is, Univibe is a it's a little fidgety, and I noticed that you know, because it's basically canceling out frequencies. That's why it does this thing. You do lose some of the low end. So, but that amount of finessing that's inside there, I'm just like, wow. Once I got to that speaker balance control, I was like, oh, okay, there's a whole world there. That effect is owning me in this moment. That's actually really cool when you get into it inside a box and you're like, oh, okay, this thing is deeper than I am. Okay, that was our rotary. Would I compare the experience between QC Line 6 Pod HD 500 and the DT50? Ivo, what's going on, my man? So the thing about the DT50, I have 3 DT50 heads and 412 cabinets because I'm a lunatic. And that at some point sooner than later, I'll be doing a series of, and I think it's going to be me and Mason kind of hanging out doing some wet, dry, wet stuff. Mason from Vertex. Um, and so the thing about those DT amps is they're Bogner designed. Um, and I also have a pair of the combos. They sound amazing. And that was, I don't think you're a church guy, but the HD 500 and the DT had, one of my DT heads was kind of my church rig, and it was just ridiculous. And it was kind of way back, sequestered up there, and the sound guy loved miking it up, and we just had this ridiculously great tone, and he would put a little delay on one side so it was kind of separated left and right front of house. It was a very wide room, but he gave me a lot of leeway to just kind of have a great time with those amps. So, Reinhold working in combination with the Line 6 is Bogner, that of course is a brilliant combination because you get all that flexibility. The real challenge is as this technology evolves, those are heavy amps to move around. Now, I actually love them and I keep them. And I think last one I bought the third head a year ago. A year for me is recent news. So I was still actually in the process of acquiring that head, and I think I might have bought it with another 412. But again, I have three heads and matching cabinets, I'm anticipating when I actually set up the HD500X into that rig and set it up, wet, dry, wet. And then the other thing that's great about the DT stuff is they've got great direct out of the head, and they've got all this great Class A, B, Class A, the preamp, pentode, triode. Like Reinhold is a genius. He's been inside all the amps, so he knew how to put all that stuff in there so you could take and blend those components together. So it is staggering what you can do with those. So, and to your point, there's this tube thing going on in there. Brilliant amplifiers. So I to tell you the truth, again, more great questions. So to be determined. So I'm going to have to set that rig up again just to remind myself. But the thing that I loved, there was one thing that I did here with the Jose amp where after the thing was captured, I brought up the gain control. Like, oh, you can do that. The AC30 model in the in the HD500X is great. And it had this thing where you turned up the gain. I think it's called gain and not drive. And if it's not gain, it is drive. But it just added more distortion without changing anything other than making the frequency just a little tiny bit wider. Because sometimes when you turn up the gain, it just gets a little pokey in the top end. And whatever it filled out in the bottom, it was just gentle, but it just allowed you to go from a nice kind of crunchy, chimey, jangly thing to a lead tone that you're like, oh man, without having to use a tube screamer. And when and where I can get away without using a box for distortion, I'm down with that. Great question. Woody Smith, what's going on, my man? How you doing? Doug, as gear historian and action player, thank you very much. How does Quad Cortex stack up to the NDSP neutral density filter? That's the other Doug speaking. Yes, the NDSP plugins, and is the next generation in digital guitar gear. Best, Woody. Awesome. Hey, it's an interesting thing. I've not been in this box deep enough doing its thing. Again, part of what I wanted to do with this extended mix restream and stream is kind of take a very personalized approach as opposed to like, here's all the things you can do with it. I wanted to, because everybody's done such a phenomenal job with it. I was like, here's what I want to do with it. But then it's not kind of like to pre-sell people. It's just like, here's what I want to do with it, and this is where I would like to go with you, such that people can take the journey together if they so choose to endeavor. So the thing is that the ability to do all of this stuff inside the digital domain in a box that's that big, that you can stick under your arm or stick it in your gig bag perilously, but at the same time, it just needs a little protective case is really what it needs. And so that is to say, hold on, let me make sure that good. So you could have a little case that literally fit over the top of this and just had a little, these guys, were there, and then you could kind of, it would be great if there was an elevation to this thing. Chad Boston, are you listening? And then you could kind of, with your finger, get in and adjust this guy, but you wouldn't actually be able to step on that. So that would be my thought there. And to name it, we go DD. Hold on. Let's see if I can get the caps going. And this is really cool. Okay, hang on. All right. You want to know one of my favorite features that seems like a stupid creature comfort? This. Okay. Flippin' A. I love this. From the face of this unit, DD swirl. This ability to do this. I've lost the ability to spell. Why can't I spell swirl? SWIRL. I can save it later. Seriously? I mean, like, that's pretty darn awesome on the creature comfort level. Really quite amazing. So I'd say it's all of them. To answer your question about the plugins, I mentioned earlier, and I don't know if you were here before. Thank you for coming, regardless. The idea of being able to load those plugins into here, that Pliny plugin is the best plugin I've ever played through, and you don't need to be using a DAW to use it. So I need to spend some more time playing through this stuff. I have not yet heard this thing get as insanely. I can't believe this is a plugin vibe. Just in that they're doing something in the digital space that it's like it's kind of like CGI, right? You know it's not real, and you don't care. Like what they're doing in the DSP space is just unreal. You know, neural DSP. Hey, so it's just inconceivable what they're doing. So I'm waiting to hear what those plugins sound like ported to this box, because that when I hear that, because that's the marriage of all those worlds, where now it can do this, and when it does that's a lot of punch. It's a lot of punch. Michael Mitchell. All right, we're going slightly off topic, but I'm going to be happily answering a question. Oh, look at this. Okay, so I'm running from my pedalboard into my Marshall, out of the effects loop, into a rack, into a MIDI verb, and don't laugh, splitting left and right in the loop, right out to my super reverb. Left back to the loop and right out to my super reverb. My question is that the best option, or should I use something else to split between the two amps? I'm not hearing phase or anything else. All right, first of all, Canoga Park, hey, you were a Bay Area boy, Mr. Giaz. In any case, so, first of all, if it feels great and sounds great, it's great. What you want to, and again, you pointed out about the phase. One of the things that frequently happens, if by chance you run into, one of my favorite hacks is to actually use an AB box into both channels of a Fender amp. The challenge is sometimes those two channels are out of phase. So you got to make sure that whatever AB box you're using, like the Radial Switchbone AB, I think is what it is, the model name, which I love. It's got the ability to flip the phase, and it's got a bunch of other stuff, and it's got ground lift. It is phenomenal. Just obviously being conscious of phase. And by the way, on your Marshall, if you were just using an AB, so to tell you the truth, you're using your super. Okay, so if it were me, which it's not, I would, and I think you're enjoying getting the stereo split is what you're digging. But I mean, that super reverb is one of the best clean amps ever made. I would just use that amp on its own, doing whatever Jimmy, Stevie Ray thing you're potentially doing with the Marshall. I would use the effects in that. And if you're really wanting to go stereo out of the Marshall, I would buy a second Marshall, and I would basically come out of the preamp out, and I realize I'm an expensive friend, so just keep that in mind. I buy a second identical Marshall, and then I would use your effects. One goes into Marshall 1, the other goes into Marshall number 2. And basically, what you're doing is you're using the one Marshall as a master. You're coming out of the effects loop send. You're going that into your stereo split. One goes back into the return of your master head. The other goes into return of the slave head. And then you should be fine. And the deal is, in my experience, because you're simply using the second amplifier as basically a slave power amp. When you switch from a clean, when you add it, every time you add an extra level of gain, the phase actually flips. And so the challenge is, if you were actually running through the front end of the Marshall, and then A being ABC, ABY, that is to say Y with the Marshall and the Fender running simultaneously, and you switch from a clean sound on the Marshall, and then you add a preamp tube and switch into like a first level of crunch, if you will, the phase is going to flip on the Marshall, and your two amps will be out of phase, or they were out of phase to begin with. So the point being is that they will flip every time you add a gain state. So you want to be conscious of that. So basically, the rig I just described to you was the old Steve Vai rig, and at one point, sooner than later, that we're going to be doing here on the show is also going to be doing just kind of rig of the week, because I'm a lunatic, and if it's not of the week, it's just going to be like, all right, this week we rig of the show or something. But I really would like to do one of every week where it's just some kind of little rig or big rig, and maybe that's it's the teaching point around how to put together, I don't know, an FRFR rig, or a fly rig, or just kind of all of that stuff, so that as this content lives on, all the different things you're going to potentially do as a player, you can kind of come back to it as a gear dictionary, if you will. So the thing about the Vai rig is that's when I went down to GIT, Joe gave me Steve's phone number. We became friends. I kind of tech for Steve for a couple of shows and set up his rig and tore it down and hauled it out to the parking lot. So the point being, and loaded it in. But in those days, basically the template up until when he switched to the new rig was that the one head would be the master, exactly like what I was talking about. You split it, and then that out of the one loop of the master head, split it in stereo, return to the master head, out of whatever stereo effects setup you're using, and then that same thing would kind of get piped into the return of the slave head, and that way you're just turning the one master volume up and down is controlling the whole rig, and you switch channels on the first one, and the second amp, it's just acting as a power amp, but it's playing through the same speakers. It's got the same power amp section, so it is voiced a little bit more evenly. Now, one of the things you saw me do here potentially earlier, because you've been here for a while, thanks for your patience, is that I actually took, when I had the same model, one that's panned to the left, one that's panned to the right, I boosted the bass and the treble on one side and cut the bass and the treble on the other, just because they're the same model, they will sound identical, and without effects, they'll some in the center. But if I change the EQ on them, they won't do that. So I'm always about kind of how I can manipulate the stereo field. But, so, that's part of what you're doing. You're like, I'm really digging the way I'm getting that spread. And if that's floating your boat, awesome. But with the super reverb, I would go so far as to say, if you could get the stereo Marshall and just go all that, because ultimately what you're talking about doing is you're really digging the vibe of stereo with the Marshall, then buy another identical head and cabinet, use the effects loop like that, and use an A and B setup to then go into that super reverb and use that purely for the clean sound. And then with the super reverb, if you really want to get fancy, you can use an AB into that amp and use the vibrato channel / reverb channel on the clean channel, and then you toggle back and forth between those. And what I like to do is use the vibrato / reverb channel, it's called vibrato, and use that for the Stevie Ray channel. And then the channel number one, I use it for the kind of the Marshall-y crunchy thing. So, using overdrive into the vibrato channel, a distortion pedal into the normal channel, and having those after the split on an AB box. So you have the ability to more or less kind of create a 4-channel amplifier out of those 2 channels. That is to say, in your vibrato channel, you're turning your overdrive, TS whatever, on and off, so that's clean and overdriven. And then in your number 1 channel, you're turning the distortion on or off, which is totally clean. So imagine being able to have your compressor on there. There's your spanky clean with no reverb, and then turn on your distortion pedal, and then maybe have some sort of MIDI setup so that you've got, distortion and delay come on. And that's the other thing that you can do with a unit like this, or a unit, like HX Stomp, where you can kind of do those 2 discrete signal paths and kind of through the power of MIDI and presets be able to map that stuff out as well. All right, Gabriel, hope that helped. All right, first of all, let me turn this off And let me just go au natural. So I'm going to turn all this stuff off for a quick second. There we go. All right. And Gabriel, I saw that when that question came in. Oh, awesome. Hang on a second. Where is Woody? There we go. Woody and Andrea. Hey, that's so funny. Woody, I think of you. Hey, there we go. Hey, first of all, great to hear from you. Second of all, without going into details, I frequently think of your amp story, and we're just going to leave it there, but it always brings a smile to mind. So let's catch up soon. Great to hear from you. Always a pleasure. Please give my regards to Andrea, and reach out. And thank you, man. Great to see you. Awesome, and cool. So Gabriel, oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong input. So when you asked that was kind of when I went into that demo, when I first saw that question come in. And I had some distortion up, or an overdrive up, and then I backed it off. But I'm just going to hang out with a clean sound and kind of manipulate this a little bit, and we'll start there. So here we go. Funny thing is that sometimes it's a really stark, clean tone. Really, first of all, you learn a lot about yourself as a player. It's just like nothing on it. But the neat thing is you kind of really begin to learn a lot about the character of an amp. Somebody had requested, and I never went there. You change device. Hang on. Let's do this. Change device. And let's go to an AC30. Where's our Brit Plexi? I probably just walked by AC30. Oh no, UK top boost. There we go. Okay, done. All right, we're gonna need to do. I got the mic up good. Let's no, we want. There we go. All right, I'm going to fiddle around with the AC30 for a second. I'll invariably turn on a compressor and probably some sort of drive. Turning the mic off. A lot of people don't know about the AC30 is that it is also a really great blues amp. So I'm going to hang out in a bluesy mode for a minute, and then I'll kind of do a couple of other things. All right, Gabe. And somebody else was asking something about that. The oh, thank you, the mist. I think you can change device by turning the roadie knob. Okay, hang on. So, um, oh, got it. Yeah. Funny guy. All right. Yes. Like I said, the journey together. The funny thing is the touchscreen sucked me in so badly. I'm like, I loathe texting. I'm like of that generation, a little bit older. Like, if I can just give me a keyboard again, why I like the like it's a QWERTY keyboard. I love that. But I've been so pulled in by the touchscreen. I'm just like, oh, thank you, the mist. Appreciate that. And with pleasure, Michael. All right. The only other person virtually bonding that I know with three DT50 half stacks. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, let's see here. All right, so good, Gabe. Got that answered. Okay. So first of all, I'm seeing a language that I don't speak. Guitar tabs daily. Thanks for hanging out, dude. You have been, at least I'm presuming, dude. Well, of course it's dude. Silly me. Duh. In any case, awesome. Oh, I see. Okay, there's a conversation happening, in French. Once Doug gets his own unit. Okay, then Melissa, you're a gem. Okay, you can turn the foot switches for more tactile control, but I'm sure you knew that already. Actually, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of just I'm figuring it out as I go along. How about that for an honest answer? So getting back to that whole thing about like which amp is it based on, that is a great sounding AC30 model. So, and again, people think of certain amplifiers when we think of blues as quote unquote, you know, dare I say, an American centric music. We think of more often than not American made amps. And so, the AC30, however, is a great blues amp. And, in many ways, it's got the jangle that the AC30 is known for really lends itself for blues, because in the same way that Fender amplifiers break up on the bottom end, the AC30 breaks up a little bit on the top end, so it's not quite so pokey on the transients. When a Fender amp gets loud, it can be a little pokey around 2.5, 3.5K. You're like, ooh, if the amp is elevated on the stage and it's at the player's the back of their pant leg, and you're kind of at face height with that amp, it can take your head off. So, all right. So here's the thing: is at approaching 3 hours. And first of all, thanks for coming from France. You came a long way, or I came a long way from California. But regardless, this has been a tremendous amount of fun. I love doing this show because slowly but surely it gets closer and closer towards where I've always wanted to do. Thanks very much in part to all the hard work that Andrew Bonica put in the kind of the launching of the Doppler's Gear Garage, which was the precursor for the GTR show. Next Saturday, invariably, we're going to be covering this. And there is other stuff that's going to be making its way into the mix as well. But, part of the new generation of this, and now that I've got this room up and running, is the ability to incorporate wider quantities of gear. And I've got enough cameras and enough switching capability that I'll be able to do some of the interesting things. So honestly, with the capture side of things, I could have a couple cameras set up in a couple of different places and actually do something like that, or at least be able to fly in something that I can fly into pieces. Dude, no, actually, thank you, but much appreciated. And we have conversations to be had. Good conversations, that is. Uh, in any case, Gabriel, I had a sinking suspicion that by the end of this one, you're going to be like, uh, yeah, pretty unreal. Love the photo, by the way. So, but the funny thing is, it's like when I saw your message last night, I was just like, I think Gabriel is going to jump in. So, in any case, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for if a tree falls in the middle of the forest and nobody hears it, it's kind of like a demo. It gets played and nobody hears it, then so it's all about the people that show up. So with that said, at 11:59, I'm going to bid each of you a fond adieu. Many thanks. If you haven't already hit the like button, if you would be so kind to do that. If you haven't already subscribed, I'd like to encourage you to do that as well. And I look forward to. Hang on a second. We got a last question here. Let us know when you're ready for content with great pleasure. And Kiami, is that how I would pronounce that? Mr. Kiami, that is Mr. Kiami to you, Doppler. Absolutely. And like I said before, I don't do this for the money. I've never been that guy, except for when I was like, some crazy 20-year-old. I'm going to be a millionaire rock star. I'm just like, here we are. But the great thing is I have a tremendous amount of fun doing this. And one of my favorite things to do is to help other players be able to kind of go, I was able to plug in and have that experience that for whatever reason, I've seen a couple of threads. All right, I'll take the bait a little bit on that. There is a debate. I saw a post, and it was somebody kind of doing one of those not nice posts, which is like, I don't know why people want to buy other people's pre-made sounds, and I'm just like, all right, put your nose a little bit lower. First of all, it's really nice to sometimes just buy a sound and you go, there it is. I can just plug in. I can play music. The result is the music. Now, part of me loves the geekadry in getting there, but I'm also the guy that went to sleep at 4 o'clock and got up at like 7, and set the alarm for 6:30. It comes at a cost, but I mean, like I'm not really complaining that much because this has been a huge amount of fun, and I have the privilege of being able to play through gear like this, and more importantly, getting a chance to hang out and serve an audience that is as excited about this stuff as I am. So, the point being is that this is a journey we get a chance to take with one another, and the ability to have these sounds to just kind of load it into your box. I mean, it's just crazy. It's kind of like, I remember when I first started using gear, I had no idea, and it took years and years and years. And even at a point where I was a relatively proficient player, actually I was a pretty darn proficient player, but I couldn't get the sounds that I was looking for. And at that point, there weren't a million 5 knob, I should say, 4 channel, 3 channel, whatever amplifiers, and it's changed, and that's why I have such respect for Jose's work, in that amplifier is there was a band in the Bay Area when I was playing in the clubs when I had big poofy hair and boots. Called Vane, and Jamie Rose, just an amazing guitar player, and Third Power Amplifiers, Delana, had an amp that was kind of like that, but a little bit more lynchy, and we did a couple shows together, and I just remember just the sound, and I was just like, I want that sound, and I wasn't able to get it. I don't know whether it wasn't in my hands at that point, but I think it was a matter of like I never found the Marshall that kind of could do that, and then this amp kind of has come along. So the ability to help other people have that journey is a big deal. So to kind of tie that off, I think anytime you can give somebody the ability to plug into a setup and have their experience take them someplace that they wouldn't have been able to go otherwise, it's a huge privilege, and it's a lot of fun. And we started doing this because we wanted to have fun and the joy of making music, and from time to time actually doing it together. But most of us actually don't make music with other musicians. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, thank you. So the point being, we get a chance to do this together. I mean, it's been a very strange, very difficult time for a huge number of people. But I love that there's been a sense of camaraderie that I've been able to develop with people all over the world, and it is inspiring for me. So thank you. All right. So, and yeah, let's give a round of applause to Mrs. Doppler, always keeping the faith and keeping things. Hang on a second. We got to. Oh, hang on a second. Hold on a second. Somebody's saying, Ibanez, Doug Doppler, can you do a live video on the Ibanez experience you've had and your opinion about prestige and premium ranges and the reason why I'm the. Well, thank you. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love that. And I am waiting for the Larry Basilio LB1 to show up from my friends at Ibanez. But I think that's a great idea. I love that. Boom. All right. Fantastic. Melly. All right. Everybody, thank you so much. Have a great day. And look forward to hanging out. I will say as a commercial announcement what I'm going to do, and I didn't have a chance to do it beforehand. I will put my Sweetwater affiliate link down below in the description, such that in case you decide to pick one of these puppies up, I do make a little something on the back end of that. But it's always appreciated and no pressure, because this is not why I do what I do. But being able to take my wife out to dinner, buy her some flowers, being able to do that out of my earnings as a musician is always a privilege, and I don't take that privilege for granted. So awesome. Oh, Jem. Jem just woke up. So my man, I am, well, I tell you what, I'll give you a little AC30 before we get out of here. Hang on, we're 3 hours and 5 minutes, but you, my friend, will get a little AC30. That was for you, Jim, because that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't shown up. So there you go. Hey, there's 3 hours worth of crazy content. So feel free. Peter Daviduck. Hello, my Canadian friend. We love our friends north of the border, and especially I hope you're doing very well, staying warm. I heard about those sub-zero temperatures you were having up there. Look forward to connecting, my friend. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And Jem, always a pleasure. Hope you enjoyed that little Jemmy Jam there. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out. What a privilege. Have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Actually, for any of the folks that are so inclined, on Tuesday night, I'll be back with this box saying goodbye because I got to ship it after I'm done. But this bad boy is going back to where it came from, but on Tuesday night on the Worship Guitar Show, which is available at facebook.com/worshipmusicianmag or youtube.com/worshipmusicianmag. We'll be going over this in kind of a P&W, the P-Dubs vibe on this. But you know, regardless, it's been a lot of fun. Look forward to seeing you all next Saturday, and it's going to be really cool. New gear, lots of fun. Oh, hang on a second. I'll remind him. Hang on a second. I love it. Thank you. No, that's great. I've got to reach back out to my dear friends at Ibanez, and I am thrilled that I was able to be kind of involved in your choice of picking up an Ibanez. That is really cool. It's one of my favorite things when I've had the privilege of running into somebody. It was kind of an abstract thing. I used to do a lot of work with Orange, and I was at this kind of outdoor Luna Park well, Jem, you know about Luna Park. Uh, Gabe, thank you, my friend. So we were out there with Melissa and her family because my wife is from Sydney, Australia, Penno, West Pennant Hills, and I was standing in line to get on some ride, and this guy is like, "I bought my orange amp because of you," and I was like, "Yes." So it's random, but it's not, and it's such a privilege to be able to kind of be a part of people's gear journey. So, oh, that's so fun, Jim. That's awesome. Uh, Lovely place. Sydney is a great city. I got to tell you, Jim, you will make it back to Nashville, but of all the places in the world to be, Sydney is a great place to be. So much love to all. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week, Saturday at 9 a.m. Stay safe. Have fun.